Good afternoon. Well, in 2 minutes it'll be a good afternoon. Hopefully a better afternoon where you are. It is raining here. As a matter of fact, it's been raining since yesterday, uh, all night and all morning, and actually it's been a bit heavy. So keeping my eye on the creek behind the house, see what's going on with it. Um, I imagine it's flowing pretty swell right about now. Anyway, welcome to Beatles Lunchtime Trivia. Woohoo! Um, I got some Beatles music playing in the background and just waiting a couple of minutes here to start. And going to do something a little bit different today, but I'll get to that in just a moment. As a matter of fact, I shall be right back. Yes. Okay. Well, just a few seconds to go here, I do believe, and I will start. Oh, anyway, today is such a dismal day. You may be able to hear the rain when it starts pouring again, but we shall see. Okay, well, it's new time. Welcome to Lunchtime Beatles Trivia. I hope you're ready today to test your knowledge. My name's Sharon Schultz, and also known as the Bay Lady. I do a lot of virtual tours for events and places in around the Chesapeake Bay area, the city of Baltimore, which is in Maryland in the US of A. So a little bit about me, right? If you wish to see some of my tours, I do live stream quite a few of them, and you can find me on my Facebook page, which is The Bay Lady, or you can find me on my YouTube channel, which is Sharon Schultz, The Bay Lady. And one more place, you can find me on Twitch as The Bay Lady. So if you follow me on those places, you'll be able to receive notification when I schedule tours. I'm getting ready to do that shortly, hopefully sometime today, actually. So at any rate, I want to do something a little bit different today. Instead of asking you questions, testing your Beatles knowledge, I'm going to read something to you and see how much of it you can test your knowledge again by seeing how much of this information you knew and how much you didn't. We all think that, we know so much about the Beatles, and of course, they've been out there for so many years and there is so much out there. But somehow it never seems to be enough. There always seems to be something that you didn't know. So, what I'm going to read to you is a story from a book that came out, I want to say November of 2023. The Beatles have their own golden book. Check it out, right? Yeah. Yeah, their own golden book. Golden books. Do you remember when you were young, they had a golden book for all of the Disney nursery, all of the Disney characters, fairy tales, nursery rhymes, and people too. Okay, there's like 200 of these little golden books, and everybody that's anybody has one. So I'm going to read you the Beatles Golden Book, and I'll show you the pictures as well. And we'll see, and that goes for me too as well. I will see if there's anything in here that I didn't know before. See how good we've gotten, right? Okay. There is the pictures. John, Paul, George, and Ringo were four friends from Liverpool who rocked the world as the Beatles. Each year, millions of visitors come to the bustling city in northwest England to learn about the band and see where their musical dream began. Never lose affection. Can you hear the music playing softly in the background? Right? Okay, here is the next page. John Winston Lennon was born in Liverpool on October 9th, 1940. His middle name came from England's Prime Minister at the time, Winston Churchill. When John's parents split up, he went to live with his Aunt Mimi. John spent hours in his room drawing cartoons, writing stories, and playing his guitar. The guitar was a gift from his mother, Julia, who died when he was 17. Next up, there's Paul. Paul McCartney was born on June 18th, 1942, into a house filled with music. His father was a cotton salesman who also played piano and trumpet in his own jazz band. Paul turned down music lessons and instead taught himself how to play the piano and guitar. Like John, Paul lost his mother when he was young, but John and Paul shared something else that would bring the two together: a love of music. There's John and there's Paul. So, shall we guess and say, next up, therefore, and the story continues. One summer day, Paul dropped by a festival to hear a band called the Quarrymen. Started by John, the Quarrymen played rock and roll music and jazzy tunes called skiffle. During the band's break, Paul played a few songs on the guitar. John liked what he heard and asked him to come join the band. Here is the Beatles with Paul on guitar. Next up, right there, the Quarrymen had kids dancing all over Liverpool. When they needed a third guitarist, Paul suggested his friend George Harrison. Born on February 23rd, 1943, George fell in love with rock and roll after hearing Elvis Presley play Heartbreak Hotel. When he got his first guitar, George practiced so much that his fingers were sore. There's George practicing. And the story continues. All that practice paid off. At the age of 15, George auditioned for the Quarrymen on top of a double-decker bus. The band had found their new guitarist. Now, all they needed was a new name. One of the hottest groups at the time was the Crickets. John thought it would be cool for their band to have a bug name too. Guitarist guitarist Stuart Sutcliffe suggested Beatles, spelled as the bug B-E-T, or better, Beatles spelled B-E-T with the nod to music. With their new name came a new goal. The Beatles would be famous. Or, as they'd like to say, they'd go to the toppermost of the poppermost, Johnny. Beatles, bugs, boys, all goes. Okay, next up. The Beatles were still far from famous when they were invited to perform in Hamburg, Germany. John, Paul, George Stewart, and drummer Pete Best jumped at the chance to bring their tunes overseas. The band played every day of the week, sometimes for as long as 8 hours straight. After months of rocking Hamburg, the Beatles left Germany with new mop-top haircuts, more fans, and their first recorded single, My Bonnie. They also left without Stewart, who stayed in Hamburg to study art. So the Beatles were back in Liverpool and back to performing at small clubs. Fans stood wall to wall to hear them play. The band's popularity was growing. All they needed was a recording contract and a little help from a friend named Brian Epstein. As the Beatles' new manager, Brian got right to work. First, he changed the band's look. Instead of leather jackets and jeans, John, Paul, George, and Pete would perform in suits and ties. And the boys were expected to act like polite gentlemen and always be on time for their shows. It stuck. John and Paul got to work too, teaming up to write songs. Paul wrote his lyrics neatly in a notebook. John scribbled his songs on random scraps of paper. Their writing styles were different, but they led to catchy tunes like She Loves You and I Want to Hold Your Hand. The Beatles had great new songs, but still no recording contract. Finally, a music producer named George Martin invited John, Paul, George, and Pete to audition at his studio. After hearing them play Love Me Do, he offered the Beatles a contract and a suggestion. The suggestion was to find a new drummer. Saying goodbye to Pete wasn't easy, but the Beatles would say hello to an awesome drummer from Liverpool who called himself Ringo Starr. Born Richard Starkey on July 7th, 1940, Ringo spent many months in the hospital as a young teenager. To pass the time, he started drumming, grabbing whatever he could to bang on his bedside cabinet. Years later, the drummer with many rings on his fingers had the right look and the right beat for the Beatles. Oh, it's pouring rain again. I've got my window opened. I don't know if you can hear it. All right. Yeah, 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 yeah. Hey, Judy, how you doing, girlfriend? By 1963, Beatlemania had spread throughout England. Kids combined their Beatle haircuts. No, I'm sorry. Kids combed their Beatle haircuts, carried Beatles lunchboxes to school, and read Beatles magazines. When fans thought they knew the Beatles' favorite candy, they showered the stage with jelly beans while they sang. Along with the fame came a new nickname. John, Paul, George, and Ringo were called the Fab Four because they were so fabulous. And there were four of them. Okay. The Beatles now sang at fancy London theaters and even performed for the royal family. What could be bigger than that? Brian had an idea. The Beatles would go to America. The first stop would be New York City to perform on a popular TV show. Then off to Washington, D.C. for the Beatles' first concert in the USA. To Brian's surprise, the Beatles were more worried than excited. Their song, I Want to Hold Your Hand, was a hit in America. But would they be? Let it be. Some wisdom, let it be. There's still that shines on me. On February 7th, 1964, the Beatles arrived at New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport. The Fab Four didn't know what to expect until they were greeted by thousands of screaming fans, calling their names and waving welcome signs. The Beatles had arrived in America, and so had Beatlemania. That Sunday, 73 million Americans tuned in to meet the Beatles on The Ed Sullivan Show. In Washington, D.C., they played in an arena packed with fans. John, Paul, George, and Ringo had truly reached the toppermost of the poppermost. And it was just the beginning. Sergeant Pepper. For the next 6 years, the Beatles would give the world over 200 hit songs. They would be honored by their queen and star in 5 movies. The Beatles would become the best-selling band in music history. But through all their triumphs and fame, John, Paul, George, and Ringo would always be 4 friends from Liverpool who made their dreams come true. How sweet was that, right? My goodness. All right, let us do some trivia here. Okay. Let's do. Oh, here we go. I gave you some um, uh, information there. Did anybody have here anything they didn't already know? I didn't. I think, though, this was all the basic information, right? I mean, that was nothing in great detail or earth shattering or anything like that. However, we may find that in here, okay? This is one of many the Beatles trivia book. We're on chapter 3, entitled Changes to the Band. And we just heard some of that actually, so maybe that'll put us on an more even playing field, maybe. Okay, let us see. Hmm. Which of the following was a short-lived name of the band before establishing the name Beatles? Was it the Black Beatles, the Poison Beatles, the Up Beatles, the Silver Beatles? Again, it was a short-lived name that the band used before they officially settled on the Beatles as the name of the band. So was it the Black Beatles, the Poison Beatles, the Up Beatles, or the Silver Beatles? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. Do we know? Maybe. How about D, which would be the Silver Beatles? Anybody? Anybody keep that right? Yeah. Anybody know it was the Silver Beatles? Oh, see, look at this. At the encouragement of their manager, Brian Epstein, the Beatles traded the leather jackets from their Hamburg days for which kind of attire moving forward? Now, I know you all knew this because we just had it. Okay. At the encouragement of Brian, the Beatles traded their leather jackets from Hamburg for what? Was it suits and ties? Was it trench coats, jean jackets, or top hats? Suits and ties, trench coats, jean jackets, or top hats? And the answer is suits and ties, as we knew. We're so smart. What year did the Beatles completely stop touring due to concerns about safety, exhaustion, and inadequate sound equipment? So what year was it when the Beatles decided to stop doing those live tours because of concerns about safety, exhaustion, and inadequate sound equipment? The answer, it was in 1966. Okay, next. As they evolved, the Beatles albums began to feature the use of orchestral strings, a trend that started with which hit song? Okay, so the question is, as they grew, the Beatles albums began to feature the use of orchestral strings, a trend that started with which hit song? Was it A Day in the Life, Yesterday, Eleanor Rigby, or I Am the Walrus? A Day in the Life, Yesterday, Eleanor Rigby, or I Am the Walrus? The answer was yesterday. True or false? Paul McCartney covered on bass guitar after Stuart Sutcliffe left the Beatles in 1961. True or false? Paul McCartney covered bass guitar after Stu Sutcliffe left the band in 1961. True. That was a truism. John Lennon started wearing his iconic round granny glasses in what year? John Lennon, remember his iconic round granny glasses. Which year did he start wearing them? Was it in 1965, 1966, 67, or 68? Okay, was it 1965, 66, 67, or 68? Any guessers? Anybody knows? Hmm? Anybody? I want to say 1966. 1966 is when he started wearing those cool glasses. For which instrument did the Beatles have issues with recruiting and keeping a player for in their early career? I didn't know they had one. Which instrument did the Beatles have issues with for recruiting and keeping a player in their early career? Was it vocals, bass, guitar, or drums? Which one did they have problems finding? Vote for vocals, vocals, bass, guitar, or drums? And the answer would be D, drums. So they had problems with drummers. I wouldn't have known that. Harrison's interest in meditation and Indian culture inspired him to take lessons and learn how to play which Indian string instrument? So George's interest in meditation and Indian culture inspired him to take lessons and to learn to play which Indian string instrument? Was it the sitar, violin, sarod, or tambura? Sitar, violin, sarod, or tambura? And the answer is the sitar. Sitar would be it. Okay. Let's do this one. This will be our last question. The iconic mop top was a staple of the Beatles' image when they first gained worldwide stardom. What facial hair addition appeared on all four Beatles on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? Again, that's kind of a lengthy question. Let me read it again. The iconic mop top was a staple of the Beatles' image when they first gained worldwide stardom. What facial hair addition appeared on all four Beatles on the cover of Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band? Was it beards, mustache, goatee, or mutton chops? A beard, a mustache, a goatee, or mutton chops? Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. The answer, mustache. The answer was mustache. Okay, well, folks, let's do one more real quick here. It's a true false. The Beatles incorporated Hindu-inspired spirituality and non-Western instruments, into their music. True or false? The Beatles incorporated Hindu-inspired spirituality and non-Western instruments into their music. Was that true or false? It was true. They did that. All right. I hope that you enjoyed our Beatles trivia session today. I hope you'll come back and play again with us. We'll be back on next Wednesday at noon, right here, same station. And I hope to see you there. See how that works. All right. Take care.